Hello everybody and welcome to the Hill Podcast, where the upward journey is the most exciting part. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the most effective way to combat nihilism. To restore meaning to the journey, the individual needs to find purpose. And in this video, I'm going to dive into exactly how this is done. I'm also going to talk about why having purpose is the cornerstone of meaning in existence. But before I dive into this video, hit that like and subscribe button so I can share my message with more people. Much appreciated. In taking steps towards figuring out your purpose as an individual, you are already establishing a meaningful existence. Imagine waking up in the morning having a reason to go and do your work. Imagine waking up feeling like you are here for a reason. This is what purpose gives us. Purpose is the antidote to not having any reason to be around, having any reason to participate in the life journey. Having purpose gives us a reason to struggle on and to go upward. And it isn't when we reach the peaks of life that life is most exciting and most fulfilling. It's when we're in the midst of the struggle that things are most fulfilling. And this is the upward journey. And this is why I call this podcast the Hill Podcast, because it is in the struggle, in the work that we do, that life is truly most fulfilling. It isn't when we reach our goals, because as soon as we've accomplished a goal, well, there's nothing left to struggle for, and it's not the most exciting point of a story when you've reached the climax and, all the conflict is resolved. We as humans thrive from conflict. We do well in conflict, and we are built for conflict. I think a lot of us might have a false expectation that having purpose is something that we are just intrinsically born with. We see individuals who are well along their life's purpose, and we assume that they were always that way. But I would argue that finding purpose is something that has to be found through conscious effort. It has to be found through doing inner work, and it has to be found through tons of thinking about one's skills, one's environment, one's backgrounds, and what you can offer to the world as a unique individual. Finding purpose isn't something that you will just stumble across. You really have to work at it. But what if you were absolutely convinced that you have no purpose? Well, let's dive into some of the natural laws and do some philosophical analysis of the things that govern this existence that we're in. As human beings, we have this advanced ability to think about the framework that we're existing in. We have the ability to think about thinking, and we have the ability to question everything around us. And this has its upside, which is, we're capable of advanced rational thought and we can do future planning. But this also has a downside where we can question if the game that we're in per se is even worth participating in. One only needs to look to nature to understand that the nature of this existence is that everything has a purpose. Everything fits into this unique, intricate puzzle that we call life. There are certain laws that govern all of existence, from the lowliest animal to the most complex creatures like us. And nature has shown us time after time that everything has a purpose. So a purposeful existence is intrinsic to everything on this planet. We can look at atoms and their purpose. Atoms come together to form more complex compounds, which ultimately form the backbone of the existence in this material world that we're in. We can look a little bit more macro and look at the cells of different animals and plants. These cells come together to function as a unit that ultimately allows for the well-being of the different plants and animals. Going even more macro than that, you can look at the function of each animal within an ecosystem. Plants produce oxygen, and they also produce a food source for the animals. And the animals in turn will consume the plant, and often they will leave behind the seed of the plant, which ultimately serves to pass on the genes of that plant. Everything within an ecosystem has purpose, and the animals aren't sitting there questioning if what they're doing is meaningful. They are always present, and I think that's one thing that we can definitely learn from nature. Nature simply exists. Nature simply just is. Loss of meaning is a learned response, often from past experiences. Traumas and different things that completely broke our reality at the time can cause us to not be willing to participate in this game of life. You could experience trauma like losing a family member, and let's say that this family member always worked hard and, they provided for you and they lived a generally good existence, and they were taken by some extremely horrible sickness. This completely broke the reality that you lived in, and you felt a feeling of, why even do this? Why am I here if I'm simply just going to die one day? This response that you have to this trauma is avoidance of pain. You don't want to experience the pain of, seeing somebody die again, or the pain of trying to reach for greatness to only fail. But this mentality fails to acknowledge that if we didn't have the possibility of failure, of pain, and of death, then we couldn't have the positive side to that same coin, which is success, life, and fulfillment. You cannot have good without bad in this life.